the game was different, right? The rules was different. The ball was different.
The Euro style is different in America.
The Euro style was a lot different than America.
That's the first time y'all seen that Euro step too, huh?
Absolutely.
My name is Bradley Fisher. I'm from Chorley in England in the Northwest. Originally, I went to Montana State and then transferred to Emporia State for my sophomore and junior years, and then I graduated from Emporia State.
Nice. What year did you graduate, Brad?
2018.
2018. Okay, so still fresh out the game.
Yeah, I like to think so, but my body says otherwise.
Big Chorley. Hey, my guy, it is great to have you here. Normally you'd like to say, oh, I knew him when he was like this tall or whatever, but I knew you when you was that tall.
Yep.
Always been a great guy to know and converse with. So I'm happy to see your journey. And when I was in Oklahoma, it was good to meet up with you and the wife and hang out. Still upset that you didn't play for my senior men's team, but we won't talk about that today.
Maybe another day.
Right. So how and why did you choose Montana State?
Well, a big thing for me is that they were the only school that was very consistent in contact, probably because of Chris Haslam. Chris, I've known him for donkey's years, but and that's how I got connected to Montana State, was through Chris. So, but yeah, no, they were always very transparent with their vision and what they wanted to do with me, at least with the original head coach that I was recruited for, and all of that. And plus with the experience that I had, so I was in the AAU circuit, I was gaining a lot of traction my junior year, and then it all came crumbling down whenever the NCAA compliance office said that I had to take B-Tech or A-levels and finish my GCSEs as well, which I didn't. I came over to America for high school and stuff like that. So, and that's when got into MySCO, but yeah, that's where a lot of my sort of traction fell off. But Montana State with Chris was always in the loop, even when even when I came back to England for that 1 year. They were really the only school that really kept in contact with me, and yeah, it was a no-brainer, at least at the time.
Okay. That's interesting because how many schools would you say were interested in you before the NCAA got involved?
Probably about at the time of my junior year, probably about 4 or 5, because I had a really good AAU circuit my junior year as well as a junior year. So yeah, I had about 4 or 5 other schools that were giving me letters and giving me calls, that sort of thing.
Okay, cool. What type of scholarship did you get from Montana State, and did your grades play a factor? I know you talked about going to school, so yeah, break that down for us.
So I was fortunate enough to get a full ride with Montana State, and that included books, room and board, that sort of thing. So yeah, I was very fortunate to have that opportunity and stuff like that. In terms of grades, they did play a part in compliance-wise for the NCAA, but in terms of scholarship, not really.
Didn't, okay.
No.
Fair enough. And then going back to Emporia State as well, why did you choose them, and the same thing with your scholarship?
Yeah. Well, the coaching staff at Emporia State, very similar to how Montana State sort of treated it. Whenever me and Coach Fish, who the head coach at the time, sat down and just kind of discussed the whole year, and that's when we decided that it would probably be best for me to transfer. Emporia State was one of the first schools to reach out to me, and Coach V and Coach Paul, they were very sort of just kind of how Chris Haslam was throughout my entire process with Montana State. They were always transparent and on top of communication and stuff like that. Plus Coach V, just like Chris, he'd been to Europe, he played in Europe.
Okay.
He's 6'11" himself, so he knows all about how to coach big men and stuff like that. And that was very appealing at the time. And I just got along with Coach V just as a person in general. So yeah, it was, Emporia State, I really liked the school, like the area. As little as it is, it's actually quite pleasant. It's like a gem in the Midwest, kind of hidden, but it's there. But yeah, no, I was very excited about it, and that's kind of why.
And then how did your scholarship work from transferring from D1 to D2?
So it was similar, which again was very fortunate. I had a very similar situation. So the scholarship that I had, another student athlete at the time had got it as well. And it spanned, I think, 6 student athletes were able to qualify for it. And myself and a teammate of mine actually qualified for it. So we got that, and that was able to pay for the academic side of things, as well as room and board, and then a little bit of the books. I still had to pay a little bit for the books, but it wasn't wasn't that crazy. So
okay, nice. What questions did you ask when you was being recruited? And this is, both schools, both programs.
I'd say I didn't ask enough questions. For at least when it came to Montana State, I didn't really ask enough questions, because I still struggle with this now. I'm always a person to ask questions after the fact. And stuff like that. So, but with Montana State, I feel like I should have asked more questions, but some of the questions that I did ask, especially when there was a transition for head coaching, like the head coaching position, Brad Hughes, who was the one that was head coach at the time that I was being recruited. He was let go, and then Brian Fish came from Oregon, and was put in as head coach there. So I should have asked more questions about his ideology, how he wanted to run the program, how he saw me fitting into that system that he wanted to run, and just sort of track, like where he saw me now and where he wanted me to get to. I should have asked more things around that. I didn't at the time because I was a shy, intimidated, like
7 foot plus and intimidated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So it's like I should have asked more questions like that, because it ended up biting me in the ass. Because at the end of the year, I was more frustrated with my situation than I probably ever have. And so with Emporia State, I did ask more questions, more than not. Like, did ask those types of questions. Like, I know I hadn't played. I think it was above 20 minutes, something like that, collectively, like the whole year. And I asked Coach V at the time, I was like, I've only played 20 minutes the entire year combined. Like, where do you see me fitting into your system? And how do you see my development in that system? And he was very transparent. He was like, well, we know that you haven't played that well, not well, but we haven't played that much. But we do, he even said that we can't guarantee minutes. That's going to be something that you earn. But in terms of development, he started talking about all the big men that he's had like under him over the last few years, and as well as some of the couple of the big men that he's bringing in, as well as myself. And it was just one of those things where the more questions I asked, the more comfortable I felt, and that was the difference between Montana State and Emporia State. I felt a lot more comfortable going to Emporia State than I did going to Montana State.
Now, great that, you know, we're talking about two things that are really big with international students in, you know, in college sports, not only just basketball, but college sports, is transferring and the change of head coach. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, you said, like, what I want to know is, how did you find out did you find out just like everyone else via, you know, a media post or whatever, or did they come to you guys as student athletes and say, hey, look, there's going to be some changes, this is the coach, and you have that, do you have like not an interview, but a sit down and talk with the coach? How do they treat your transfers in terms of, are they like, hey, look, do they give you the option to transfer, or do they tell you have to? Or, I mean, break it down.
So just for the head coach transition, so it was the summer before I got there. A few weeks before I even got there. It was right after that season. I think it was the 2014 season. And then Chris actually texted me and said, hey, we need to talk about what's going to happen, that sort of thing. And I caught her, and we got on the phone, and he went, I understand if you want to look at other schools, but I want to at least give Brian Fish, or Coach Fish, sorry, the chance to at least introduce himself, like that sort of thing, and see what see if I liked what he had to say. So we set up a call. It was a very short call. I don't really recall much about it. It was, I remember we didn't really have much time to really talk. It was just obligation introductory call. And going into it was more of, okay, well, I need to get to know this coach more so than I did Coach Hughes, because Coach Hughes actually came over to England. He met my family and all that, and he kept laughing at my dad because he didn't know what he was saying. So he just kept laughing. So like there was a connection with Coach Hughes that I didn't have with Coach Fish. And I think that was just a mental barrier that I had like throughout the entire year that I was there. And then as for the transfer, so Coach Fish actually texted me to see if I was in class or not, and I wasn't at the time. I had a free period, and he wanted me to come to his office. So I went, and Chris caught me in the hallway, and he knew what was going on, and because I could see it in his face, like something wasn't right at all. He stopped me in the hallway, and he was like, "Come and see me after you're done." And I was like, "Okay, well, this can't be done, surely." So I went into Coach Fish's office, sat down, and he was very blunt, which I respect the hell out of him for it. And I like it like that. I guess I like people being blunt with me. It's just one of those things. I'm like, just get it over with, rip it off like a band-aid sort of thing. So yeah, he was very blunt. He said, given the numerous chances and the system that we're trying to build, it was very different from what it was the year prior. So Coach Hughes was a very big man oriented, get touches in the post. If there's no score in the post, like dish it out, like that sort of thing. That's my style of basketball. Whereas Coach Fish was very point guard oriented and shooter oriented, and the big guys' sole purpose was to set screens, roll, run the rim runner, that sort of thing. Which, I mean, you've seen me run. I can't run to save my life, man. Like, it's just one of those things where it just wasn't my system.
It wasn't a match.
So, but yeah, he was very transparent, very blunt. He wished me all the best. Like, and it was a case of, at least in my situation, I had to transfer because I wasn't gonna get the scholarship would have been revoked, or and I would have had to like find my own way. If I stayed at Montana State, I wouldn't be playing basketball. If I stayed at Montana State, that sort of thing. And so,
sorry to cut you. So was you told you had to transfer, or was it more of a conversation of, hey, look, Brad, we're not gonna play you and we're not gonna renew your scholarship? What was it like?
So it was a little mix. So so Coach Fish sat me down. He was like, we're not going to renew the scholarship for you. And I was like, so what does that mean? And he was like, well, you have two options. You can either stay here, but you would have to find your own way, or you can file in for a transfer and find a new school to take you on. And at the time I was like, well, yeah, like I want to play basketball. I want to go to school where a place actually wants me to play. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily an ultimatum, but given the information that I had and what I was told, it does feel like it, but what people don't understand is it's really not. It's you still have a choice at the end of the day, but a lot of the times people will go with the transfer and go somewhere else.
Yeah, get your school paid for. I hear you. Interested, man. There's we've had a few different stories of coaches being proactive and helping their players. They know that they can't they're not going to keep them in the system, or things aren't working out, whatever. There's coaches that are really proactive and saying, hey, look, I think these schools would suit you, or I've spoken to whoever. And then there's coaches that are just like, hey, good luck on Monday. You know what I mean? So it's funny. Very interesting. What was the league play like in, for both what leagues were they? Tell us what leagues in both situations.
So Montana State is in the Big Sky Conference. So you have Eastern Washington State, just Eastern Washington. You have Weber State, Northern Colorado, those types of teams. And then for Emporia State, they're in the NIAA. So you have Northwest Missouri State, you have Washburn, you have Western Missouri, very like high level schools, programs like within D2. Whereas in the Big Sky Conference, it was a mid-major league. Damian Lillard came out of Weber State and stuff like that. So the league had already been like proven to like produce high-level talent, and there was some really, really good players in that league. And the conferences between the MIAA and Big Sky Conference they were pretty much identical in terms of like the style of play, and all teams were a little bit different, but it was very identical in terms of how they played, what the speed was, that sort of thing.
Okay. And what was it? Was it big dominated? Was it a lot of shooters, physical? Like what type of?
Big Sky, when I was at Montana State, was very. It was a mix, but it was more leaning towards shooter oriented, or that's the path that it was going.
Okay.
And then Emporia State for the MIAA, it was definitely 50-50. Like it wasn't like a guard oriented or a big man oriented league. It was very straight and narrow, 50-50.
Okay.
It just depends on the team that you were playing. Like some teams had good bigs, like Washburn. Another team like Northwest Missouri could shoot the lights out of it. So it was just like each night was a completely different style of play.
Okay.
Which is it's quite interesting when you look back at it. So.
Okay, so we're getting to the turning point of your college career. What happened to stop you from playing at the end there? What can you walk us through that?
So my time at Emporia State, though I like Coach V and Coach Paul and all the other coaches that I had interacted with there, like can't say a bad word about them. But my time at Emporia State, I felt like it was more of a reaction from how everything went down at Montana State. Yeah. Because that's at Montana State, that's when I realized that, oh, this is cutthroat. It's business it's business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, okay, well, and that's where my sort of love for basketball started to just, it was at the highest it's ever been. And now, and at Montana State, it was like just going down, like without
declining,
without stopping really. Like, I still like enjoyed it in some parts, but year after year, it felt more like a chore than anything. And so at the end of my junior year, it was probably the worst year. Well, not the worst year I played. I'd still played decent, but my minutes started getting reduced and stuff like that. And then towards the end, I kind of had a gut feeling that it was going to happen, but it's just one of those things that has to happen for me to like be like, oh, this is like happening. So yeah, end of my junior year, Coach V kind of brought me into his office and explained the situation, said that it's like nothing personal, like he still wants me to feel like I can come to him with any problems or anything like that, but with the pressure that he was under, he had to go in a different direction, which basically meant that he wasn't going to renew my scholarship after that year. So I had 1 year left anyway. He'd said that he made it more of a choice than what Coach Fish did. Coach Fish was like, yeah, you need to transfer. Whereas Coach V was like, you have a couple of options. You can transfer, you can stay here, but you won't be playing basketball. You'd have to find ways to like pay your tuition, that sort of thing. So I had to like sit on it for a week or two. And my wife and girlfriend, girlfriend at the time, like, she knew that I wasn't enjoying basketball at all. Like, she knew it, but I knew it, and I was like, well, I have to make a decision. Do I go and give it one last shot somewhere else and hate myself for it? Probably not. Or do I just say, that's it, like, I'm done, just cut it out, and then like find a way to pay my tuition, find a way to pay rent, find a way to pay for groceries, that sort of thing.
Finance it.
Yeah, like just find a way. And I stopped. I said, Coach V called me and he was like, what do you want to do? Because he was ready to like help me, like with schools. Like he was ready to like help me look for schools and that sort of thing. And he already had like a couple of schools that were somewhat interested, but they wanted to speak to me first. And I was like, Coach V, I appreciate the help and that sort of thing, but I think I'm done. Call it a day. Yeah, I'm done. Like, and I think honestly, like looking back, I was like, that's probably, even though it was the hardest decision I've ever had to make, it was probably the best decision I've probably made, because now I'm like, now I love basketball again. I'm like, I love it. I love playing again. I love doing all types of stuff. Like,
even though you didn't play for me in Oklahoma, but yeah, I'm glad you. No, but it's definitely interesting, and I'm glad that you found that passion, that spark. What was the hardest thing about making that decision to stop playing ball or to not pursue another scholarship? And was you afraid of being judged by family and friends?
Not necessarily being judged. It was more so of I have failed. Like, it was more so that, like, I'm stopping playing basketball, so I have failed. Like, I have failed this American dream or college dream that people think of. Like, the first person that came to mind, actually, it wasn't even my family, it was Neil. Like, I was like, if I stop playing basketball, like, I wasn't worried about what my family would think, because my mum, bless her heart, she's always been, just do what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's what she was the one driving me up and down the country for basketball stuff, all that. Like, so she wasn't. She would always like support me no matter what, and all that. But it was more so like coaches that I met like, across the way, like you, Neil, Chris. Like, what are they gonna think? Like, it's like I've just stopped playing basketball completely. Like. Failure. Like, not a lot of people like experience that. Well, they think they do, but they don't. But it's like when you've dedicated so much time, so much effort, most of your all of your teenage years, actually, all of your teenage years, all of the after school events, all of the after school practices, all of the extra stuff that I was going to, like my granddad drove me to, my mum drove me to, like all the Preston Pride practices, all of the Runshaw College practices, all of that. Like, it just felt like it all was for nothing. Like, that's how it felt. And that was the main sort of gut feeling that I had, was just that instant failure. I wasn't worried about any judgment or anything like that. It was more so that I've failed them, like group of people that were close to me and invested in my future. Like, I have failed that group of people.
Man, that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
It is. And if it's any consolation to you now, I am happy with your decision, and I'm happy that, you know, that you've managed to get to America, to live, to have the experience. Without it, you know, you wouldn't have found your lovely wife, and you know, have your career now, and all the rest of it. So yeah, not everyone's journey is a straight line. And I think I'm gonna speak for Neil a little bit, but just having, you know, young men and individuals going through their life journey and being able to make autonomous decisions, and be content with it, and you know, just live productive lives. I think that's you know, that's all we can ask for as coaches. You know, it would be amazing if you ended up being drafted by the Lakers and being in the league now. But I'm just as happy that, you know, you're over in Kansas and doing great. So yeah, for me, I'm happy. Anyway, not to get too mushy. Can you talk about the process of leaving? You know, what came through your mind when it came to, you touched on it a little bit, but you know, when you was met with that choice, and coach says, hey, take it or leave it, or like, what really put it through? What really drove the point home?
It would have to be like the realization of what I wanted to do. So like, I remember just sitting in my not college room, but like apartment room, just sitting there, like laying down, looking at the ceiling. And then Marissa, my wife, girlfriend at the time, now wife, like she came in and was like, what are you thinking about? I was like, well, what am I gonna do now? But yeah, that's what really drove it home, was like, she was very like, well, you've dedicated your whole life to this, like what, and now you have this, a lot of free time to like, really like put it together. Like you don't understand how much time basketball takes up until you're outside of it. I had so much free time on my hands. I was like, this is what a normal student does, by the way. Like, I was blown away by it. But no, just like the realization that I'm a normal individual. That's what really dropped home.
7 foot plus normal, right?
Yeah, well, not in that, but like a normal like college student, like not in terms of physical attributes, but like in terms of like workload and stuff like that. Like I had to work 20 hours a week. Because I was only limited to 20 hours a week because international students can only work on campus.
Yeah.
I only found that out when I had to get a job. So like I was only working 20 hours a week. So I was like, this is what normality feels like. So like for the past like 10 years, however long it was, my whole life has been dedicated to just basketball, and then now I'm just a normal work-life schedule individual, and I'm like, that's what really hit it over, was that I'm a normal individual, finally. Like I'm not, I don't have to miss out on nights out because of
practice
basketball or anything like that.
Games.
Like I can, if I want to go out, I can go out. Or if I want to just stay in, which is what it usually was, I can stay in. Like it was just that normality that was missing the entire time. That's what really like
the process. That's nice. What would you advise, you know, if somebody's watching this now and they're kind of thinking, man, they've got like a similar decision, what advice would you give them to help them make a decision?
Don't overthink it. So like with my situation, that whole year, I think that had been more of the downward slope than ever. It was just like my passion for basketball was at an all-time low. And so it's just like, you just gotta, don't overthink it. It's like, do you wanna force yourself doing something that you don't have a passion for? Or do you wanna put that energy that you were putting into something else and find a passion that way? So that's what, don't overthink it. It's as much of a big decision as it is. It's still a simple decision, if that makes sense. If you think about all the factors that contribute to it. So like, where's your mental state at with basketball? Do you love basketball? Do you love doing this? Do you put the time in? Where do you see this going? Like, you got to think big picture. You got to think longevity. Like, where do you see this going? And I could have transferred to another school. I could have done okay, and I would have landed in a low league somewhere in the middle of Spain, somewhere, I don't know. But I just didn't like that path, like that idea that I had. I was like, I just don't want to be complacent. That's because that's what I got, was complacent.
Okay.
I don't want to be complacent. So it's just like, taking all the factors that are in your mind, simplify it by saying, do you love basketball or not? That's the big question that can make that decision for you. Do you love basketball? If the answer is yes, then by all means, like, keep going with your journey. But if you have an ounce of doubt or an ounce of no, then it's just not going to work out. Because you're not going to have a long career. Like a lot of pros that I've met that I've played with who are now pro, their mindset is like completely different to a lot of other people in the sport. It's just like one of those things where it's like, this is my life, like that, because it is. And it's like, that just wasn't me. At least at the time I made the decision, it just wasn't me. I'm like, basketball isn't who I am, and at least anymore. Like that's what it was. So that's what made the decision. So yeah, don't overthink it, simplify it, and that's it.
Okay. Kind of controversial on that, literally what you just said.
Yeah.
Do you think that it was worth leaving, you know, going through everything? Do you think that was worth, you know, all the hassle, all the training, all the rest of it? Do you think that it was worth it? Or do you think that, you know what, I could have stayed home and not gone through all of that, you know, I guess the normal life kind of thing, if you wasn't going to finish playing basketball?
I would never say I regret anything. I'm like one of those things where like the amount of hours that I put in and the amount of extra stuff that I did, I'm very thankful for it because it's made me who I am like today. But I mean, if I didn't go through it and if I just didn't play basketball, if it wasn't as serious as if it was just a high school phase that I was going in at Southlands or whatever, then I don't know where I'd be, to be honest. I don't even want to think about it. I really don't know. I'd be just a waste of height. That's what my PE teacher said. I was like, you just want to be a waste of height your whole life? I'm like, what? Like, sign me up then. And then that's how I got into basketball. I'm like, all right, well,
might as well do something.
Yeah. So,
do you think you could have done anything to change the outcome? You know, yes, we've spoken about, you know, what we've done and all the rest of it, but is there something that you feel you could have done to reignite that passion of playing? You know, as I said, this is for those that might have that decision now. And if they're sitting down and they're thinking, man, I don't really love it anymore or whatever, do you think there's something that, you know, maybe playing pickup games or maybe, I don't know, do you think there's something that could have changed your mindset to like enjoy basketball again or to make you want to stay, like to transfer to another school and give it another shot, or was you just done?
Personally, I was done. I was burnt out. Like, it was just one of those things. But again, it was like, I gave it time. So I gave it time. Now, granted, I calling myself out a little bit. I didn't really put the effort in to reignite the passion that I had when I was at Myosco, for example. Like I didn't really, and this is like realization after the fact. So you don't really realize it until you like look back and like, God, like that's something that I probably should have done. But no, just like, if you're in that position currently, it's to reignite whatever passion you have left. Just find the little things that you love about basketball. Like, what makes you love the sport? Like, is it the notoriety you get? Because I know that's what I got. But at least being from Chorley, like, people just know me. People know me in Chorley. Like, oh, you're the basketball guy. I'm like, not anymore, but yeah, cheers. but it's like, that's what you get from it. So it's like little things where it's like, do you enjoy the actual playing of it? If the answer is like, and I did enjoy playing it. It was just more so of the business. It goes back to the business side of it, and that's not anything that you can kind of separate because it's always going to be a part of it. But I'm going back to like the days of Preston Pride club basketball. Like, those are like the best times of, like, it was just so fun. Like, basketball was so much fun at that time. Like, even going to my school, like, it was a lot of fun. Like, just training every day, coming in from Chorley, like riding with Neil all the time. Like, it was a lot of fun. Like, I enjoyed the process that it had, and a lot of people find or lose the meaning in that, or not the meaning, but like they lose that essence that they had whenever they did enjoy basketball. That's where they lose it. So just find what you love about the sport, and if it really means, like, if those little things are something that can keep you going, by all means, because always look back at those little things and like, oh yeah, they're keeping me going. Like, yep, because you never know what's around the corner. Like if I transferred to a different school, it could have been a completely different story. Like my love for basketball could have just skyrocketed back up again. But again, it's not necessarily a choice. Well, it is, but it's like little things that you decide to do that can, like, well, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to put the work in? Because I know I got complacent. Like that's my biggest regret, is that I got complacent. I didn't really do much more of the extra stuff. Like I did, but it wasn't really, like, yeah. So it's like, what are you doing to kind of really test like your love of basketball? Are you doing the extra stuff? Are you enjoying the extra stuff? Are you enjoying the process? Because that's all it is the process. You love getting in the gym, getting better, getting stronger, understanding the game of basketball a little bit more, building that relationship with your teammates, building those relationships with your coaching staff, regardless of the minutes you play. Like a lot of people get wrapped up in the minutes they play, and it's like, I didn't play anything. Like, well, very minuscule minutes. And so it's like, but I still at least tried to a certain extent I still put in a little bit more time in than some of the other teammates that I had. Like I still put the effort in, I still put the time in, because I'm not physically gifted. I'm 7 foot, that's about it. I can barely jump over a phone book down. But yeah, it's just like,
when you was younger, it was a credit card. So I mean, a phone book's a step up.
Yeah, phone book is a step in the right direction. But like, but yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, you just got to control the controllable. Coach V said that to me, and that stuck with me ever since. Control what you can control. And I'm like, looking back at it, and I'm like, I didn't appreciate that until now. And I'm like, I tell my Marissa that all the time. I'm like, just control what you can control. Don't worry about it. And she's like, and she hates me when I say that. And I'm like, oh, I mean, it's true.
I had enough of you, Brad. Like, stop.
Yeah.
I love it. Is there any value, or was there? Would you say there was a value in going over to the States? Was there a value in going through the process? Yeah,
I mean, looking back at it, and I was thinking about this like a few months ago. It's like, what if I'd have stayed? What if I've done the Alex Roberts route? Right, go to Loughborough, like different school. Like, what if I'd done that? And I don't really know, because it's like a completely different experience. Yeah. But like my experience is probably going to be completely different, because I did the 3 years of high school. I came back, did a year at Moscow, and then did a year at Montana State, and then did 2 years playing basketball at Emporia State, and then 1 year just being normal. So it's just like, do I regret it? No. Not at all, because it's been a journey that I could probably write a book about. Like just so many different experiences, like the food, the people, the basketball itself, like travel, like you get to see everything. Like Montana State was the most I'd seen of America. Like we went to California, we went to Kentucky, we went to well, we didn't go to Buffalo, but we were going to go to Buffalo. But like, just like all those different things. And then we went to Colorado, we went to Portland, we went to just like all these different places. And I'm like, I've been to like, I think I counted it the other day, it's like 38 states out of 50. And most of that is because of basketball, like AAU basketball, traveling with like Montana State, traveling with Emporia State, like all these little experiences that I can tell anybody, and they're like, that's incredible. And I'm like, that was just a normal day for me. Like, what? So it's just like, it's the little things, and I'm like, that you definitely appreciate.
38, geez.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so we're gonna get on to the fun bit, more trivial and touristy questions. What's the weather like in the two states, or by the two programs?
Montana State is 75% winter, all pretty much And even then, like, even the summer, you get maybe a week of like nice weather, right? You get a week of nice weather, right? So I remember one time in Montana, we were leaving at like 5 a.m. to go to the airport. This was like for our LA trip and then Kentucky trip. And I had showered, but my hair hadn't dried. And I walked out, didn't realize that it snowed about 4 feet of snow. And it was minus 35 degrees Celsius. And I'm like, and I walked out, my eyebrows froze, my hair froze, like all of that. And I'm like, I'm just sat there with my winter coat on. And I'm like, what is happening? I went back inside, put another winter coat on. So I had 2 winter coats on. It was freezing. Like, although it was very, very cold, and I'm a winter person, I love the cold, but like that was like
too cold.
Like, but I would say Montana State is probably Montana and Bozeman. Probably, I would love to go back there just to like visit, like touristy stuff, that sort of thing. And then in Kansas, I mean, the springs and summer were really hot. Like, and I melted. Like, I sweat a lot when I worked out anyway. But boy, like, being in Kansas is different, man. Like, in Oklahoma is the same. Like, it's just different, man. Like, there is heat. It's like just humidity in general. That was the first time someone said humidity to me, and I'm like, and they were like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." In England, it's just hot or cold. Like, what's this humidity?
Well, you're from Chorley, it's just cold. There's no hot in Chorley.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like, and the winters get really cold, but it's nothing like in Montana where you get 4 feet of snow. Like, you get snow a little bit, but it's like rainy. But yeah, the summers are really nice, really hot. Like,
any extreme weather conditions in either Montana or Kansas?
I'd say in terms of extreme,
like tornadoes, hurricanes.
Tornadoes in Kansas. We got, I think, the whole time I was there, I only had experience with 2 tornadoes.
Only 2.
And even then, yeah, well, yeah, it's 2 more than most people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean 2, but it was one of those where it's like we weren't like Wizard of Oz, like in the middle of it. It was more like it was on the outer edges of Emporia, but you still like got immense wind, huge lots of downpour, like all of that.
Okay. Must-see destination of Montana and Kansas, the place where you must go to.
Oh man, the mountains in Montana. Like, just pick a direction. Like, they're everywhere.
Any mountain.
It's called Montana. Like, there's mountains everywhere. Like, just pick a direction and go. Like, there's that. Just beware of bears. Like, bears are like an abundance, man. Like, I remember there was a bear on campus one time, and I was like, "Nah, I'm not going to class today. Sin a bit."
Bear on campus.
Yeah, like we got an email like campus is closed today because there's a bear on campus, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, just come down from the mountains, and I'm like, the animal control had come in, shot it. Well, not shot you with a sleeping dart. I don't know what else happened after that.
Just casually, just, you know.
Apparently it's normal. And I'm like, there's a bear in the middle of a campus. How is this normal?
Just morning, Yogi. Like, just.
The crazy thing about it though, I didn't get the email until I was on campus, and then I didn't see anyone, and I was like, oh, this is weird. Like, there's usually like a crazy preacher person like in the middle of campus, like trying to say everybody's the devil, and I'm like, oh, he's not around today, what's going on? And I'm like, and then somebody like ran to come get me. I was like, there's a bear on campus, you need to like go home. I'm like, what? Where we were told this?
Campus.
But yeah, there was that, and then what was the question?
Must-see destination
must-see destination in Emporia, Kansas, or I'll say Kansas because Emporia is kind of limited in attractions. Probably Kansas City. That's a go-to place.
What's down there? What's down there to see?
Well, you've got Kansas City Chiefs football team. You've got the baseball team, the Royals. I nearly lost it. I nearly lost the name then, but yeah, the Royals. And I mean, we live here in Kansas City now, and we love it. Like it's just so modern. Like it's just a beautiful place. Like power and light, barbecue. If you like barbecue, and I'm not talking about McDonald's dipping sauce barbecue. None of that. Actual barbecue stuff. Kansas City is where it's at.
Okay. As you've touched on food, best place to get food in both Montana and Kansas?
I can't really say it in Montana because I never really ate outside of the food court.
Oh, boo.
I mean, it was free. I was just obsessed with it. I was like, oh yeah, free, ding. And it was buffet. It had all sorts. I'm like, ding, buffet, everything. And that was
Buffet,
like free, like just check into the dining hall. It was just food everywhere. I'm like, this is heaven.
Okay.
So yeah, I never really ate outside of the food court, and even then, like my experience was like fast food takeaway joints, like Wendy's.
Okay.
Or Applebee's is good.
Applebee's is your go-to?
Yeah, Applebee's would probably be my go-to. Their appetizers are pristine.
Okay. Same thing for Kansas.
Emporia, oh man, I was thinking about this the other day because just after watching another episode, I was watching Jordan Spencer's episode the other day.
Oh, was you?
Yeah, and I was like, oh god, what food? But there's two places that I'm like, if you're in Emporia, that is it. There's a burger place called Doobies.
Okay.
It's like this little hole-in-the-wall, small little restaurant, but it probably has the best burgers I've ever had.
Doobies.
Yeah, Doobies.
Okay.
And they're big too. It's like big sizes.
Okay.
Yeah, we always used to go there like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like for basketball, like random events, that sort of thing. And then there's another place. If you like Mexican food, one, Emporia has a couple of places that are really good, but this place is like mine and my missus' go-to place. It's called Casa Ramos.
Okay.
It has the best chorizo quesadilla combo I've ever had. Like, it's my go-to every time.
Okay, what's the name again? The
chorizo quesadilla.
No, the name of the place?
Oh, Casa Ramos.
Casa Ramos. Okay. House of something, I'm guessing. House of, I don't know what Ramos is.
Ramos. There you go.
I get butchered for this. Like, you don't know what Ramos is.
My missus says Casa Ramos, and I'm like, what is Casa Ramos? Like,
I've been debating English, and American English for ages.
It's a huge language barrier. People don't understand.
It's massive. It's massive.
I still struggle with it with my missus. We've been together 4 years.
Man, yeah, it's rough, man. It's rough. Definitely. I have to keep telling all my American colleagues and friends, I'm like, yo, it's called English. It's not called American. It's called English. We started the language. Follow directions, please. No, that's hilarious. Last couple questions. What was your level of independence going to college? Was you able to do things on your own? And what 3 things, if you was to, like, you know, if you was talking to Brad at 16, 17, what 3 things would you say you need to do, you need to know to be able to do before you come to college?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I was pretty independent. I mean, I still like got help from my mum and that, but like, and even then, like, I was pretty independent for the most part anyway. Like, obviously, whenever you go to college, it's a big like coming of age thing that everybody experiences. But like, I was already doing my laundry, at least in my American homes, like throughout high school, I was already doing my own laundry and stuff like that. When I was home, best to believe I took advantage of my mum. So yeah, but yeah, no, like I would always like ring my mum to ask her how to do stuff. Like, how do I operate a washing machine? Because like surprisingly, it's difficult at first, surprisingly or not. Like, you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
At the time, my mum didn't know what to do because it was a coin one. She was like, I've never had one of them before. I'm like, what? So, but yeah, just making sure that I mean, it's not a bad thing to call your mum about operating a bloody washing machine. But yeah, I was already pretty independent at the time. Like, driving, oh my word, I couldn't do anything. Can't drive. Like, be prepared to walk everywhere. Like, if you're coming over here, like, and be prepared to not go anywhere because America's big as hell, and everything is about 25 miles away from where you're at. Like, unless you want to walk or run 25 miles a day, don't do it.
Uber everywhere.
This was before Uber was even a thing.
Yeah.
And when I was at Montana State, I had a really good friend, two really good friends who would always like drive us anywhere. And we'd always used to just, in my phone, I used to put them as taxi. So
Did they know you had them as taxi?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not taxi anymore, but yeah.
Oh, they've got names in your phones now.
Yeah, they've got names. I actually learned the names. But yeah, just be prepared to walk most places, if not go anywhere.
Befriend somebody with a car.
Yeah, or befriend somebody with a car and call them taxi. To be fair, I didn't know how to cook, so like I already kind of knew. That's because I studied food tech in high school and stuff like that, and I always had like a passion for food. I always loved cooking, so that wasn't a big problem. But yeah, any advice for someone who's first time going through it, I'm like, just because everybody's experience is different. It's like, even though there are some commonalities, it's like everybody's going to do it a little bit different. So it's like, just do it. Like, just close your eyes, just do it.
Fair enough. I like it. Carpe diem and all that.
Yep.
What was the place called? Casa Ramos. Just trying to remember. Just trying to remember it. What was the biggest adjustment to the American culture? And was there a big difference, like in general? Apart from the language, which we just spoken about, American.
Yeah, language is a big thing, right? Yeah. But because I was exposed to like different cultures within America, that's the thing that threw me off.
Okay.
Because I was in Charlotte, North Carolina for like 2 years, and that is like the South, where it's like where people just the stereotypical American like rednecks, that sort of thing, like.
Okay.
Not like that. It's not like that, but it is. And then I was in Indiana, which is a completely different thing. Like, and then I was in Montana. That was very similar to Indiana, in terms of culture. And then Kansas is very similar to Indiana because it's heavy farming and stuff like that. So it's like, but yeah, no, in terms of differences, it's like I've always struggled with people understanding me, not because of my deep voice, but also with the language on top of that, or accent on top of that.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, you're from London, aren't you?" I'm like, "No." Like, that's the thing. Americans think England is just London on a big scale. Like, and I'm like, that's not the case. Some people, right, didn't even know, thought London was a country.
Oh gosh.
And England was a town. And I'm like, oh my God. I remember one time I got asked if I spoke Britain. That was the dumbest question.
No.
Yeah, and just like some dumb little things like stereotypes, like, do you drink tea? I do live up to that stereotype, but that's probably the only stereotype I live up to be honest.
Yeah, I get the tea one a lot. Yeah, especially because I don't drink coffee, so everyone's like, "Hey, do you want a coffee?" And I'm like, "No." and then they go, "Oh, my bad, I forgot. Do you want a tea?" And I was, "Oh, no."
I'll tell you what, you ask them how to make it, they won't make it right.
That sounds like there's some pain and anguish behind that.
I've been burned so many times by people who can't make it.
I felt the pain in your voice. You're like, don't ask them to make, they can't make it right.
My wife still asks me to do it. And I'm like, I've taught you this again and again. She's like, yeah, but your touch just does something to it. And I'm like, it's a cup of tea. It's just a cup of tea. It's like a tea bag, 2 teaspoons of sugar, splash of milk, and a bit of hot water. That's it.
A splash of milk and a bit of hot water. I love it. I love it. I love that definition of how to make tea. That might be the sound bite.
Not in that order. You gotta flip that. Don't take that out of context. Just flip that around.
My bad.
The way you did that was like milk and oh no, flip that.
My bad. You gotta get the right order. My bad. My bad. I know you're getting real protective of your team. My bad. Oh man, last couple. How did you deal with distractions? As I said at the start, don't have to say anything incriminating. I know you happily married and all the rest of it. How did you deal with the distractions? Being like 5,000-6,000 miles away from home. 7, 8, 5 hours time difference. Coming into college, there's a lot of drugs, alcohol, and love interests, we'll call it. How did you deal with that? How
I dealt with it is, I was a pretty introvert, extrovert, but I was like kind of always in the middle, but like most of the time I was introverted, so I would like stay indoors, like keep to myself. I mean, you're gonna have fun, like you're obviously gonna have fun anyway, like if there's the odd party or whatever, and people are gonna indulge, they're gonna have fun anyway. I think the one thing I struggled with was the not drinking. Mm-hmm. Because in England the drinking age is 18, in America it's 21. So I like a couple of nights out with the my school boys, right? Like, and then over in America, it's like if you do the same thing, you're gonna get arrested. And I'm like, all right, well, I better keep it to not at all. So, but like you're still gonna have those things. Like drugs weren't a problem. Like I was very good about like staying away from that. Mm-hmm. I mean, girls, it's just one of those. I mean, you're far away from home. You make relationships, like you make friends, and then you make relationships, and then you just connect with that person. Like you're gonna have love interests. Like you're gonna have interests anyway. Mm-hmm. So, and they help you cope with it because they're like an emotional release or whatever you want to call it. But I mean, as long as you're not being, I don't know, Casanova, it's like sleeping with every woman and brother, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between like sleeping around and there's a difference between like having a girlfriend. Like, there's a complete difference.
Yes.
And it's like, it's okay to have a girlfriend in college. Like, it's completely fine. But like, I was never a fan of like, just sleeping around.
Okay.
I've never been that way. I've had friends that have done it and teammates that have done it, and I'm like, I couldn't do it. I'm like, I'm too emotionally invested in a person. I don't know.
Oh, bless you.
Some people have it, some people don't have it. I don't have it.
Okay.
So, well, yeah, it's just one of those things where you're obviously going to indulge in some places, but obviously in moderation. Like, it's just one of those things where you just have to trust yourself, like hold yourself accountable when, like, be professional, because you have to be professional about it. Even as a college athlete, you do have to be professional. Like, you can still enjoy yourself, enjoy your life, enjoy the experience, because going to a party is a part of the experience. Like, one thing that I did was get blacklisted from a fraternity. Yeah.
About that.
So this fraternity had like themed parties, and so me and my roommate quit. He'll be all right with it. It's not incriminating by any means. But like me and Quinn would always go to this charity shop and get like different outfits for cheap, like just to fit the theme. And this party was like 80s beach themed or whatever. So like me and Quinn got like short shorts, we had like tank tops on, we had like sunglasses, everything. And so we went to this fraternity, and we'd already had a little bit of stuff in already.
Bit of pop.
Yeah, Fanta. But yeah, we'd already be indulged in that, and we were dancing, we were having a good time, and they had this bar in the basement. Like they had the dance floor and a bar on the basement, and people were dancing on it. And like I was like, and me being the party animal that I am, of course, I was like, I'm getting on that and I'm dancing. So me and Quinn got on the bar dancing, bearing in mind the roof is already pretty low, and we're already I'm 7 foot, he was 6'8", and we were like this, like on the bar, like this.
Oh my life!
Just enjoying ourselves, enjoying our time, and then next thing I know, this guy was like grabbing my ankle, like pulling me, and I nearly fell. And I was being that high up, like I could have cracked my head open, could have done whatever. I was frustrated, and so I got down. I was like, "You don't need to touch me like that." Like on my ankle, you don't need to pull my ankle away. And so he was like, and he was drunk. He was off his rocker. And so, and I was a little bit tipsy, but I was like, just don't do that. And then, so I started walking away, and then the bar door was open, so like the little flippy bar thing.
Yeah.
So I got past that, and he slammed it down. And my friend Tommy, who was with me at the time, he just went, "Don't do that," and he swung at him. And like he decked him, and then that's when it all started kicking off. Me and Quinn like looked at each other and we're like, we're gonna get the stick for this, so we just left. Me and him just left, and then that was it. That was all it was, like at that. And then the next thing I know, next party a couple of weeks after, we go back, like I think it was an 80s theme again, but it was like boogie night or whatever.
Yeah.
So me and Quinn had like fruffy little button-up shirts on, big afros, like Austin Powers style. We go to the front door, and there's this like fat, like ginger, curly-haired fraternity bro, like with a list, like being a doorman. And I'm like, name who sponsored you to get in. And we knew someone who would sponsor us to get in, so we were already on the list. But then the guy who comes out, the guy who grabbed my ankle, and the guy who my friend Tommy decked, he comes out and he looks at me and he's like, "I know you," and I'm like, "I didn't recognize him." And I'm like, "No, you don't. I don't know you." He's like, "You're the one who danced on the bar 2 weeks ago, and I got a bloody nose for it." And I'm like, and then he told the door, he was like, "These two aren't coming in, they just cause trouble every time." And I'm like, "What?" And then me and Quinn left. And then the next thing I know, I got a text from my friend Katie, who was taxi at the time on my phone. She was like, "You know you got blacklisted from said fraternity." I'm like, "What does that mean?" They're like, "You are not allowed on the ground, like the premises of that fraternity."
Oh man.
Well, but yeah, so you indulge in that kind of stuff. I'm not advocating that, but I mean, you're gonna have fun. Like obviously, moderate. Like, don't go absolutely mental. Like don't go out getting drunk or anything like that. But I mean, have fun. Like go to parties, have fun, know your limits, whatever. Like because it's gonna be there, and what you're gonna do, like you're gonna be a hermit. Like even the players that dedicated the most time in the gym that I know, even they did parties, and I'm like, they still find time to have fun because there's still people at the end of the day. They need to live the life to some degree, obviously within legal means, and not getting blacklisted from fraternities is probably a better way to go than what I did. But
well, you're here to tell the tale. That's the most important thing.
It's a good tale. I always tell that. I'm like, I got blacklisted from a fraternity.
Last question, Big Fish, and I really appreciate your time. What advice would you give to the new recruits looking to attend college?
Take your time. As much of a crunch as it is, the whole recruiting process, try and take your time with it. Because I feel like with me, I rushed into a lot of the, I rushed into Montana State because it was one of the only offers I had on the table. I didn't explore other options like staying at home or whatever. And Emporia State, I rushed into that as well. Just take your time with it. Understand that if you have a D1 offer and a D2 offer, the D1 offer might not be the best one for you. The D2 offer might be. So it's just making sure that you understand that just because you're at D2 doesn't necessarily mean you're in a lesser division, right? Because you could be, would you rather be a bench player at a D1 or a starter at a D2? And the answer is always going to be a starter at a D2 every time. So it's just take your time with it, do your research on the schools, think about what would you be doing if you weren't doing basketball? Because chances are basketball isn't going to be around forever, and you need to make sure that you do the education and get the degree behind that. So that's something that I've always been adamant on, is make sure you go in with some sort of an idea of what you would be doing if you didn't do basketball. Because that ultimately is what you're going to fall back on when basketball or whatever other sport it is isn't going to be a thing anymore.
I like that. That's
do research.
That's great. That's great advice. And yeah, I know it's hard, especially at a younger age, but definitely trying to think past basketball. There's a lot of guys and girls that think, I'm going to do this professionally, I'm going to do X, Y, Z and whatever, but always having a contingency, always having a plan B just in case. So that was some great advice, Brad. I appreciate it. Brad, I really appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. It's always amazing to catch up with you. Maybe one day I'll get over you not playing for me in Oklahoma, but we'll see how that works.
Oh, you hold grudges pretty well, so we'll see.
Big Fish, much to love, my guy, and hope to catch up with you soon.
My name is Bradley Fisher, and you've been watching the EuroStepping podcast. All right, don't do drugs, kids.
Appreciate you watching the EuroStepping.
I want to thank everybody for watching EuroStepping.
Watching the EuroStepping.
The EuroStepping.
The EuroStepping.
You've been watching the EuroStepping.
The EuroStepping.
EuroStepping.
You've been watching the EuroStepping, a great podcast show hosted by Coach D.